There are two major geologic hazards that occur on human timescales in the Yellowstone region, and we saw an example of one of those last week with the hydrothermal explosion of Black Diamond Pool in Biscuit Basin. The event was caused by pressure changes in the shallow part of the hot water system that lies just beneath the surface throughout much of Yellowstone National Park. As a result of the event, Black Diamond Pool is larger and the area is just littered with rocks that were thrown up to several hundred feet high by the explosion and the surge of water. Now, many of these rocks are covered in silica. That's dissolved in the hot water at Yellowstone. That can coat the interior of the hot spring plumbing systems, causing some areas to seal up and leading to pressure buildups that can ultimately result in these kinds of explosions. It's an important reminder of Yellowstone's dynamic and ever-changing nature. Unfortunately, no one was injured, and Biscuit Basin will remain closed while geologists assess how the area has changed and if the features were showing any new signs of behaviors. So it's a classic example of a hydrothermal explosion, an important hazard in Yellowstone. Now let's take a look at the other major hazard in the region that can occur on timescales of a human life.
Beautiful lake, isn't it? This lake wasn't even here prior to August of 1959. It's a consequence of the largest earthquake ever recorded in the Intermountain West United States, the 1959 Hebgen Lake earthquake, a magnitude 7.3. And this month, we're commemorating the 65th anniversary of that earthquake. Now, that earthquake, when it occurred, it really shook this area and it caused a part of the Madison River Canyon wall to fail. It created a tremendous landslide. You can still see the landslide scar and deposits at the end of this lake. Now, the landslide swept through the Rocky Creek campground and other areas. Unfortunately, 28 people were killed that night by all of that debris that swept through those areas. It also blocked the Madison River, so the Madison River started to back up behind the landslide debris, creating this new lake, Quake Lake. You can see some of the standing dead trees in the water that were marking the old forest that was flooded and the trees killed off. It even got so far as to flood some cabins and floated the cabins off their foundations. They were floating around in the lake for a little while. So very quickly, the Army Corps of Engineers, along with local, federal, and state workers, a lot of local construction workers, came into the area and constructed a temporary spillway to keep a catastrophic flood from occurring, a catastrophic breach of the debris dam. They stabilized that area, the lake level went down a little bit. In fact, those cabins that were floating around were sort of unceremoniously dumped in a meadow just upstream. And the lake today remains as it was after that debris dam was breached and the spillway constructed. Well, speaking of earthquakes, let's now get into what happened in the last month in terms of earthquake, geyser, and ground deformation activity in the Yellowstone region.
Despite the occurrence of the hydrothermal explosion at Biscuit Basin, earthquake activity in the Yellowstone region was relatively calm. The University of Utah seismograph stations located just 64 earthquakes during the month of July. The largest was a magnitude 2.7 that occurred just west of the park boundary near West Yellowstone, Montana. There was also a small swarm of 10 earthquakes that occurred in the middle of the month, just to the northeast of West Yellowstone, and that was part of this trend of seismicity that occurs between Hebgen Lake and the north-central part of the park. This is the most seismically active area of the region. Turning now to ground deformation, this is vertical deformation at the Hayden Valley GPS site. Each one of these blue circles is 1 day of data. The entire time series spans 2 years. Downward trends indicate subsidence and upward trends indicate uplift. And what we're seeing is what we've seen since 2015. Overall subsidence of the region at a rate of a few centimeters, an inch or so per year. And it's interrupted in the summer months by a pause in that subsidence or a slight amount of uplift. And that's caused by seasonal changes in snowmelt and groundwater conditions. Finally, looking at the tallest geyser in the world, Steamboat Geyser. This is the temperature that's being measured in the geyser's outflow channel, and all of this little up and down motion in the early part of the month is due to minor eruptive activity that culminated on July 15th with the fourth major eruption of Steamboat so far this year. Right after that major eruption, we saw the temperature decrease, and it started showing these daily variations, and that's really just air temperature variations, showing that there hasn't been a whole lot of activity at the geyser since that July 15th major eruption. The lack of any minor activity at the geyser means that it may be several weeks to perhaps even months before we see another major eruption at Steamboat.
Well, that does it for the August 2024 update of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. If you enjoyed this, please hit like and subscribe down below. And if you have any questions at all, either leave us a comment or send us an email at yvowebteam, all one word, @usgs.gov. Until next month, stay safe and stay healthy. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.